I have a special guest on the show today that hails from Toronto, Ontario. Hey, you guys, it's Randy here with Backstage Pass Radio. My guest today has been rocking with this band from the Great White North for the better part of 40 years now. The band has toured the world, been nominated for Juno Awards, and was a staple on MTV's Headbangers Ball. Don't go anywhere. We will chat with Russ Dwarf from the band Killer Dwarfs when we return.
This is Backstage Pass Radio, the podcast that's designed for the music junkie with a thirst for musical knowledge. Hi, this is Adam Gordon, and I want to thank you all for joining us today. Make sure you like, subscribe, and turn alerts on for this and all upcoming podcasts. And now, here's your host of Backstage Pass Radio, Randy Halsey.
Russ, welcome to the show, man. It's great to see you, and I'm glad you're with me this evening.
Thanks for having me, Randy. You're all the way down in my favorite state in the Union.
Yeah.
Texas?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. In the Houston, actually in Cypress, which is a little northwest of Houston. So we just call it North Houston for the better part of conversation, I guess.
Yeah. The Dwarfs, our first U.S. date was in San Antonio, Texas, with Saxon.
Okay.
In 1918.
1918, just a couple of days ago, then, right?
A couple of days ago.
Yeah.
The wheel was current events at the time.
Yeah. Well, so you're calling in from, I guess you're north of Toronto. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm north of Toronto. I'm in a little town called Orillia.
Okay.
Where actually Gordon Lightfoot was born.
Oh yeah.
And just died, obviously.
Yeah.
So I live like 3 minutes from where he grew up. So
always a Gordon Lightfoot fan. I'm a singer-songwriter in the Houston area here. I play in a duo, playing about 70 shows a year now. Used to be like 130 before the podcast, but do a lot of the Lightfoot stuff. Love the singer-songwriter stuff for sure.
Yeah, well, he was a big deal, definitely. And
for sure. And
they have a huge an event here every year called Mariposa. It's like, I guess it started when in the hippie generation before my time.
Okay.
I was alive, but I wasn't here. But I was a couple years ago. I ended up over at Mariposa with some good friends of mine, Tom Cochran, with Jerry Dwarf, and we actually ran into Gordon, like almost literally, like ran into him. It was really weird because you're still starstruck, right?
Sure.
You're a fan. Like, I'm a fan of music, right?
Yes.
Obviously, I'm in the show business, but you still I couldn't believe it. He was walking right towards me. I was just stunned. I couldn't even say anything. I was just like, I am an idiot.
You're like the giddy schoolgirl then, right?
Yeah, a couple people, that happens to me. Not a lot anymore, but there's a few that I'm just that I meet all the time that I'm kind of still stunned when I'm meeting them.
No, I get it, man. I know where you're coming from. I was in Vegas last week doing some interviews, and I was over at the Wynn, and I got to noticing this guy sitting out by the pool, and I'm like, damn, that looks like Rod Stewart. And you never know in Vegas, like, is it Rod? Is it one of these tribute guys or whatever? And about that time, a couple of ladies, a little bit older than I am, but walked up to him and started talking to him. And as they left, they passed right by where I was standing. And I said, is that who I think it is? She's like, yeah, it's Rod Stewart. So, and that's like, I was telling somebody the other day, probably top 5 of all time for me. Rod Stewart, Faces. I mean, you can't go wrong with Rod.
One of my favorites too. I drive my wife nuts with all the old Rod Stewart.
Oh, sure. It never gets old. It's like the Lightfoot stuff. There's stuff that just never gets old. And that's two of them right there.
Classic.
It is.
We were lucky to be, just on the cusp of that.
I agree.
60s and 70s. I think the music is just so timeless, and it's never going to go away.
No.
I don't think it. I think it because it speaks to you as a human.
Sure, I agree. I agree with you.
Lyrically and everything, it was just like there's so much change going on now and everything. And I'm 62 years old, so those damn kids. I was a kid then, and I still can put it on, and it just still does.
Oh yeah,
makes me feel excited.
Yeah. And, I started a vinyl collection about 1.5 years ago, and there's nothing better than putting a Rod Stewart and Faces record on and hearing it on vinyl. It just never gets old to me.
There's some cool stuff. I don't know if you have Apple Music.
I do. I have Spotify, but not Apple. But yeah, same.
Apple, they have like these weird records. There's some weird, there's a weird Rod Stewart album. Here, we're promoting Rod Stewart now.
Yeah, right.
Let me just see if I can find it quickly.
Sure.
And it's drive everybody nuts with this stuff because they're like, what the hell is this? Why are you talking this shit? I don't know.
Why are they talking about Rod Stewart?
Why are you listening to this crap? What the hell is it? It's a weird album with just like outtakes and shit. I don't know if I can
really?
Find it on here.
From Rod himself?
Yeah. It's called Rarities. It was released in 2013, and it has all these different versions and stuff, like Maggie May, like him building the song and the lyrics, and he's making up all these lyrics, and it's funny as shit.
Really? Wow, I'll have to check that out. I don't have Apple Music, but I'll stumble across it somewhere, I'm sure.
It's called Rarities.
Okay. All right.
It was very politically incorrect.
Yeah, well,
it's going off, but the band's playing amazing.
Sure. I like that kind of stuff. Thanks for pointing that out. But you're not. I think your band members are from the Toronto. They're kind of city boys, but you're kind of not in the city, so you're more of the country boy of the band. Yeah, is that a fair?
Yeah, assumption? I don't like the city. I'm not a big city person, but obviously we work in them and everything, and there's people there.
Sure.
But yeah, all the guys live in Toronto. They love it, and it's just not my cup of tea. I'm just more of a laid back. I don't know if you've ever seen the Dwarfs, but this part of me is very laid back. Maybe I'm moving a little slower in my old age on stage too, but back in the olden days, I don't know. I think I was crack before there was crack. When I look at some of the old videos and stuff, and I'm like, holy, what was wrong with that boy?
Exactly. Well, I think it might have a little something your mindset is not far off. I think the older I get, and I'm right behind you in age. I'm 57. I'll be 58 in January. And, I think the less tolerable I am of being around a ton of people too. You know what I mean? And I don't know if I'd like to say it's an age thing. Maybe it's not. I don't know. But I find myself not wanting to be, what do they call it? Elbows to assholes with the human race, so to speak.
Steve Martin, what did he say? Sorry, we're closed.
Yes, exactly. Right.
But I love the fans, and I love going out with the guys because we have a lot of fun and we have some history together. And I've been with Daryl for over 40 years, so it's like longer than any marriages that have dissolved. And it's your family, right?
Absolutely.
And as a band at this point, it's just gravy for us because we're just in the people that do come and see us, they know us and they know what to expect, and we're not trying to prove anything. We're not trying to get on Billboard, and we don't have a $bazillion record deal and all this pressure. Not that really mattered at the time, even, because we just want to play music. Music is, that's why we got into it and everything.
Exactly.
But I'm excited to see the guys tomorrow and everything.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's exciting, and we'll talk a little bit more about what you have coming up there. What is the music scene, or maybe even lack thereof, like up in the Toronto area these days? Is there a good scene, not so good a scene? Like what's your take on it?
I'm not really in the loop. I'm not on the social media and everything. I look at Twitter. I'm just a bit a voyeur. I look at golden retrievers, but I guess it's a big city and everything. So there's big concerts that come through and everything, but I don't know if there's much of a middle ground.
Okay.
I've been out of that situation for so long. There is a couple of rock clubs like the Rock Pile, which we play, which is a place where like obviously you've heard of the Gasworks through
sure
the Mike Myers movies and everything, and it was an iconic place. And the Elma Combo, it's back up and running too, but it's more of a, I think it's more of a different selection of stars that come through and everything. It's not like hey, come see this new band kind of thing.
Right. But I got you.
There's a lot, like when we do play in Toronto, we don't play a lot here because, you can't play a billion times in your own hometown.
No, I get it.
We get, when we do play, we have a bunch of acts that play with us, and there's young people that are they're rocking, there's a lot of rock and roll.
Sure.
It's out there, but I don't know, these days, God, I wouldn't know where to start, right? It must be hard. It was, I'm not saying it was easy when we started. It was hard as hell, right? Because, the old adage was, oh, well, you guys don't have a history, so we can't give you a gig. And we think you're a punk rock band because of your name and you might cause violence. But today it's, the internet, you don't even have to play a gig. You could be, get a gazillion.
Sure. You can be an internet superstar, right?
Yeah, and here's your $38 check. And
yes,
I don't know. I'm glad we came up when in the time we did.
I agree.
I don't. It must be tough. It must be really, really tough. Well, I see these kids. They're trying hard. So
well, it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because I had a wonderful guest on my show a couple of seasons back, a guy by the name of Tony Carey, who played with Rainbow, right? And Tony and I got off on that conversation. He's like,
the only guy that never played in Rainbow?
Maybe, quite possibly. But, he said, now it's like a lot of the musicians are what's different about it these days versus back in the 70s and whatnot is now you're kind of a glorified t-shirt salesman. I mean, that's where the bands are having to make their money these days, is on merch. I mean, because you're not getting paid anything for digital music, not like back in the day where you signed a big record deal and you got to
even then somebody else is making the money. It depends on
never the band, right?
On the deal you make or whatever, you know what I mean? There's two words in show business, right? Show business.
Yeah, exactly.
Always reminds me of that Hunter S. Thompson quote. I don't know it verbatim, but the music business is a long haul of slimy sleazeballs, and I'm not saying it right, and cutthroat people, and you'll steal your money, and then there's a bad side.
Yeah, right. That was the good side, right?
You really have to be passionate about what you're doing.
For sure.
I guess it's just blind faith, because I think it's human nature for people to go. It's like the Spinal Tap thing, oh hi, how you doing, and then you leave the room. It's like, he's got this much fucking talent,
yes.
What I mean? People don't like to see other people succeed, or they think you're doing better than them or something, and the internet really amplifies this illusion.
It does.
Think, right? Because I think it gets lost in what we're doing here. Is like we're playing rock and roll. We're not reinventing the wheel. There's 3 chords. I know both of them. It's like I think you would lose perspective on why you're doing it, because I don't know, obviously the internet's the greatest thing, and it's the shittiest thing.
It is, yeah.
It breeds a lot of narcissism, and you have to have a bit of an ego, obviously, to want to go and torture yourself with this profession. But I think the content gets watered down to the point where that's a secondary. It's a secondary reason you're doing it, right? And the reason we do it is because we love each other, but we love playing music, and we love rock and roll, and it's just we're paying like homage to rock and roll. We haven't invented anything.
Right.
This is just our interpretation of it, and we get off on it. Right?
Yep. Well, and it's interesting that you say that, because I made the comment not too long ago, as I thumb through Instagram, and I'm not. I know everybody has to be marketable, but it seems like some of the artists have almost let the whole glamour shots and the constant picture taking supersede the talent, right? It's like, are you a model or are you a musician? Like, I'm confused. Like, they've almost made the wrong one the priority. Like, I want to hear your music. You say you're a musician, a singer songwriter, but yet all I see is glamour shots on your page. Where's the music? Where can I find the music at? That's what I want to hear.
Music does the talking, I guess. I don't know. It's a conundrum, but I think you're right in a lot of ways, and it's spending a lot of time on vanity.
Yeah.
Thank God we weren't that good looking.
Thank God we had faces for radio, right? Well, the band formed, I think, Russ, correct me anywhere that I'm off base, but I think the band founded back somewhere around 81. And I'm pretty sure it was you and Daryl that formed the band back in 81. Or am I pretty spot on there?
Pretty spot on. We met in about the spring of 81. We were both in different bands at the time, and back in those days, you would do like 6 or 7 nights at the same venue. And this venue we were playing in Quebec City called the Electric Circle, Cirque Electrique, if you're from Quebec. And we had we were finishing up our 6 nights, and they came in a night early, and they had nowhere to stay, so they we let them stay with us, and then they came to the show, and then we partied, and Dunk and I partied all night, and we were, both, young and eager, and I don't know, we hit it off really well, and we were both unhappy with our situations, so we decided, okay, let's make a band. I'll take Ange from my band at the time, Oz, which was like we did all sorts of, from Zeppelin to Pat Benatar to an Alice Cooper show, and then Dunk had his own band, Sphinx, and he took Bryce, so we both finished the tours that we were on, because back in those days you did like 300 shows a year,
Sure.
And a matinee on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And so once we finished around like the fall of 81, we got together and disbanded the bands and got the band together. We rehearsed a bunch in his basement, and we did our first show on New Year's Eve in his hometown, Oshawa, at a place called the Janosh, long gone.
Mm-hmm.
And that just started it off, you know what I mean? So we had nothing. Like his dad was a real estate agent, and I think we moved from his basement apartment because that wasn't going well. Rehearsing to his dad was a real estate agent. He gave us some empty building that he eventually kicked us out of. But I can remember like freezing to death in the winter before we got any gigs, and Daryl and I in a phone booth calling up agencies like, hey, we need a gig. You know what I mean? They'd be like, you guys are too ugly to play Toronto. And it just started, and I think we just had such a passion for it, and we just wanted something. I don't know if we even had a definite thing that we wanted. Obviously, we wanted some kind of fame, or
Sure.
we wanted to make music together. And, that's a long time. We've been together like, 42, 43 years.
Yeah.
It's just hard to put your head around it.
Well, that's a testament too, that there's a brotherhood there. We're all the times gold, maybe not, but it's like with any marriage, any relationship, whether it's a band or a marriage or a boyfriend, girlfriend, there's bumps in the roads. I mean, you look at the Aerosmiths of the world, what did Steven call him and Joe, the toxic twins or whatever, right? But they were magic together, right? So you have that. But I go ahead.
Daryl and I, like, I don't know if we even ever had, I think, any fights in for all these years. Maybe a couple of disagreements, people are tired or something, but
sure.
All in all, we've both been on the same path with each other.
You're way ahead of the curve then, if that's all you've had over the course of 42 years. That's pretty good, Russ.
Especially at this point, like this lineup that we have, like Jerry Codd, the guitar player, he's been with us since 1991. So that's, he used to be the new guy. And Johnny, the bass player, he's been with us for 10 years. But the thing about this unit, we all get along.
That's
and
great.
We hang out together and we have a lot of laughs.
That's awesome.
There's probably more fun off stage than on stage, although we have a riot on stage too, and I think it translates to the audience.
Yeah,
it's genuine.
Well, it's all for naught. I would think if you're, if it's not a brotherhood and you're not having fun doing what you're doing, then it's called work. Yeah. And that's what everybody bitches about, is having to get up and go to work. I mean, if you love what you do, you never bitch about getting up and doing what you love to do.
Believe me, I bitch about it. I do it so I can bitch about it.
That's right. Well,
you're right. Like I'm grateful. Mm-hmm. Like if I die in my sleep tonight, I've done what I've wanted to do with my life.
Not many people can say that. Yeah.
And it's been an adventure, and it's not over.
Well, let's hope not, and let's hope that there's many more years ahead, for sure. So I guess you talked about forming with Daryl and picking up a few guys here and there. I guess you knew them from the local scene, the Toronto area, right? I mean, is that a fair assumption as well?
Yeah, Ange, who was the original bass player, and Bryce, who was the original guitar player. Like Daryl had played with Bryce since they were like 6 years old, and I had played with Ange for quite a few years at that point too. So we were all young and all, doing the same circuit. And those were years when like I said, we literally played 250, 300 shows a year and just moved from town to town. And in those days you did 6 nights in one place and everything. Right. So it was, you're learning your craft, you're making no money. And, but I think it was irrelevant at that point. Everybody else that you knew that were in bands were broke, but we were all trying to make it. And it was a different situation. Like, I don't know, these days, when I see these gigs, like in those days, we would be driving around with a 5-ton with all the gear and setting it up ourselves. And, it'd be like, you must remember the old lighting systems and everything. Sure. And we would tie into the power ourselves. We weren't electricians. We weren't certified to do this. You would never get away with this shit today.
No. Not with the unions and all that kind of stuff going on.
Oh my God, I don't know. I'm not a fucking electrician. You're not going to tie this 220 in. But you learn this shit on your own, and you learn from the ground up. It wasn't just like, hey man, I'm the singer. Just you know what I mean? You have to have some kind of drive, because no one's going to do it for you. You know what I mean? Everybody talks a good game, that's for sure.
Exactly. Well, share with the listeners real quick how you guys came up with the name of the band. Where's the name derived from?
Tell the truth or a lie, I don't know.
Either or. I'll take either.
That story. It's like we originally, when we started with like the new unit, we used Dunk's old name of the band for a while, which was Sphinx. And but we were looking for a new name, and we got with this agent manager that we had, and his name is Bob Connolly, and Dave Kirby. He turned out to be a massive agent in the U.S. He owned TKO. I don't know if you know that agency.
I don't know.
Anyways, look him up. He did super well for himself, and he was the greatest guy. And unfortunately, he's passed on now. But these two, the lineup, like I'm 5'4", and the other two guys are short too. The bass player and guitar player. Dunk is like 6'4".
Okay.
And I don't know. They came up with this name, Killer Dwarfs. And when they first presented it to us, we went, "Fuck that." It's gonna happen, right? But we turned it into eventually we went with it, and we just ran with it. But like back in those days, we were really theatrical, and we did a bunch of crazy shit. We used to swing on a rope across out into the audience with a loincloth on, and I was in a cage and chained up, and way before videos and all the shit.
Yeah, exactly.
But it just stuck, and I don't know, it just seems natural now. And if I stand back from it and think of the name, I think, God, that's a fucking goofy name. But
well, it's worked. Yeah, for sure.
We're known as the Dwarfs.
Yeah.
And it's like Texas. It's a state of mind.
Exactly. Well, I think you guys had the solo record or the debut record came out around the same time of what that was it 81 when the debut came out, or was 83? Okay. And then
all of 83.
83. Okay. And then you had an album, Stand Tall, which came out, I think, 86. Yeah. Does that sound correct? And I know that even though, the band received, I think you received a Juno Award nomination for the debut record. The record Stand Tall is kind of labeled, I guess, as this iconic or highly sought after piece of work. What was the big difference in the first record versus that of the second? Because I think there was a label change in between the two, correct?
There was. Exactly. The first album, was our first album. We didn't know anything. We were both idiots. I think we did I think we did a demo prior to doing the first album, and a good friend of mine, who is still a good friend of mine, and he was the vice president of a company called Attic Records. Attic Records, you might remember, had one of their big names was Triumph.
Sure.
And actually, Al Mayer, who was the president of Attic Records, he was Gordon Lightfoot's manager. Here, I'm telling you all this minutia. But Tom Williams was the vice president, and he was like the A&R dude and everything. So he was the guy that went out and everything. And we had someone booked a show on February 14th. It was called the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. And so it was at a Hungarian hall.
Okay.
So this is 1983. And so it's like 18 months after, 13 months or so after we had been working, right? Mm-hmm. And the show was nuts, and we were starting to get a following at that point, but we still weren't accepted in the scene in Toronto or anything. And someone had brought Tom Williams to this gig, and it was like the Spinal Tap. He came backstage, and probably all hyped up after the show, and he said, "I'm going to do a record with you guys." And I said, "Fuck you." And Monday morning, we were in their office, and we were, signed a deal. And he's, we couldn't get any of these agencies to work with us. And he would just get on the phone and go, "Hey, I got this band, the Killer Dwarfs." And these people had all turned us down before. I mean, they're like, oh, we love those guys. Yeah, we're going to take those guys. Anyway, so we ended up doing the first album, and I don't know. We could spend hours analyzing that. It was our first album, and it sounds like our first album. I think the demos sound better. I think that the record has been passed around to a couple different companies now. I think it's with Unidisc. I just saw it on Amazon on gold vinyl for $73, which is
Really?
just all right. I want some of that money.
Yeah.
This album's probably gone gold like 3 times, but they added, I think, 3 of the actual demo songs that we did with Chris Sangarini's. I don't know if you know that name. He's look him up. He's a famous English metal producer. We did a demo with him in like a day or 2 at a studio to show Attic that we could play and blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
But the demos sound better than the album to me. But it got our foot in the door, and this is when videos started coming out too. So this was a brand new thing.
Yeah.
And so, we toured that album, and the record company, they changed A&R guys and like record companies do. And if you're not, you need support from everybody in a situation. Just politics. It's like everything. I wasn't going to talk about politics, and I still am not. Mm-hmm. But they wanted to kind of us to do like songs we didn't want to do. They wanted a hit single, so they wanted us to do "Hot Child in the City" or something, and we totally went, "Fuck no."
Old Nick Gilder. Yeah,
and that's great for Nick and everything, but it just wasn't what we thought of ourselves as, and everything. I don't even think we recorded a thing. I think we did some Badfinger. We did
No Matter What.
If you want, I think we did that.
Okay.
But this new A&R guy came to the studio, and he acted like he was our friend. So we started kind of shitting on the record company, and he went back and told the record company, and they were like, okay, fuck you. And they dropped us.
Wow.
Right? So we got dropped on our first record, which was probably a blessing in disguise, because this forced us we could not get a record deal. So we got the money together. I borrowed 10 grand off my mother, and we went and did Stand Tall over like 6 months at nighttime, like 20 sessions tops, right? With the guy, Andrew St. George. And I think we were, I don't want to say incensed, but we were just invigorated to we're going to fucking show you motherfuckers. We weren't finished, right? But in our mind, we were like, oh no, we're finished. You know what I mean? You're young and you don't think correctly. And so we just made that album. We put all our heart into it. And lo and behold, like I said, Texas was our first big thing, because by then we had left. We were fired from Attic, and Joe Anthony at Kiss FM in San Antonio, Texas, like, he's a legend. He brought a million bands there. I don't know if you know of him either, but look up Joe Anthony, people.
Okay.
He was called the Godfather, and he broke a lot of Canadian bands down there, and he loved music and everything. And I don't know how he got my number, and he called my house, and he said, I'm Joe Anthony. I'm San Antonio, Texas. You have a #1 album here. And I'm like, again, fuck you.
Another friend.
Yeah. We have no clue, because there's no, you're going to write somebody a letter in those days. I don't know how the guy got my phone number, and the record wasn't about to tell us that the record was #1 there. And in this meantime, we were still recording Stand Tall. And we ended up going down to the States, to San Antonio, and we ended up doing a bunch of shows down there, and we stayed an extra 2 weeks, and we sold out a bunch of stuff on our own with a promoter named Jack Orban from Stone City, another famous independent guy before Live Nation and all this crapola came along. And by the time Stand Tall came out, then here comes MTV. And so we made independent videos with all our own money, and the album was done with all their own money. We just had a licensing deal in the States and Canada.
I got you.
And the record ended up selling 100,000 units, which was bizarre in 1986 on your own. Of course, we got ripped off for every penny of that.
Mm-hmm.
And MTV picked up on those videos, Keep the Spirit Alive and Stand Tall. And then they, I think that really helped us a lot, along with Jack and Joe in San Antonio. And from then, this got us more shows in the States, which got us up to New York, which got a bunch of A&R people come out from New York City to see us. And lo and behold, we got the Epic deal.
Okay.
In America, right? So it's kind of a shame, because Stand Tall I think Epic should have just maybe repackaged and re-released Stand Tall.
Okay.
Said they wanted us to go in and make a brand new record and everything. Right?
I got you. Is there a reason why Stand Tall, like if you look it up in a Spotify catalog, why it doesn't show up there? Is there some kind of litigation over that? Because and here's the reason I ask. I had another band on my show, and their stuff is not out on Spotify, and it's because they're tied up in litigation with it. So I didn't know if there was a reason why other Killer Dwarf stuff is there, but Stand Tall isn't.
Yeah. There is a bunch of legal crap going on, but we do own Stand Tall. So
okay. Yeah, we don't have to go into it. I was just curious. I at first I said, am I overlooking this? Am I overlooking it? I can't find it anywhere.
It's always legal stuff and everything. You'll be hearing from it. Like we're working on something with my publisher about it, because people keep wanting it and everything, and its anniversary is coming up, so we'll see. It was reissued in the early 2000s for about 10 minutes, but that went sideways too.
Okay.
But it's a great record. People like it, and it's raw, and it's unencumbered with the business side of it. So it was just a group effort of destruction.
Yeah.
It helped us. It helped us immensely.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. Well, you had mentioned
with MTV, right? With MTV,
yes.
It was at one point it was the most independent requested video of all time.
Yeah.
Crap like this, but people remember us like that, and we were. It was a different kind of vibe. I think we were one of the first bands that made these comedy videos, because we weren't. I don't know. It's just our nature. We take the music seriously and everything, and it's a serious message, but we like to have fun with it. It's called entertainment, people.
Yeah. There's a couple of groups that come to mind. You mentioned the comedy behind you guys and the lightheartedness. There's a couple that come to mind. Kim Mitchell, right? A little comedy, and Go for a Soda, and then
before that it was Max Webster, right?
Sure.
That's the band Kim was in. Are you familiar with Max Webster at all?
I'm not. No.
Well, there's another band you should check out. That's Kim's band before Kim.
Okay.
So we grew up on that, Daryl and I and the guys, because they used to play high schools, and obviously they're a big Toronto band. They opened up for Rush everywhere, and they're best friends with Rush, and so it was a big thing. And we saw them lots, and they were like Frank Zappa ish of Canada, because they're super talented. Lyric, Pi Dubois is a lyricist, and it's very heady shit, but they looked odd too. They didn't look like fucking Hollywood stars. They looked like weird dudes and shit, right?
Yeah.
So they did have a funny aspect, but it was a smart ass sarcasm thing.
Yeah,
and that's kind of like what we do. It's kind of like the inside joker.
Of course. You mentioned briefly just a second ago about kind of the some of the success that came from the whole MTV thing, but how do you feel like MTV enhanced the band's career at the time? Did you just see, did the career soar at that time, or was it, it helped a little? Like, can you speak a little bit about really what kind of success you felt like you guys saw from the Headbangers Ball stuff?
Yeah, I don't, it's hard to say that you see it from where your position is, but we would hear about it from, our management and the record and everything, because we're out working and everything. But obviously people connected with that, and people still know us because of that. I think it definitely propelled the band. There's no doubt about it. It was an amazing advertising tool, because you didn't have the internet. That was basically like the original internet when you think.
Correct.
So, and you can still see those videos today, and yeah, it definitely helped. It was a bonus for us for sure. There's no doubt about it. But then it gets convoluted. When we did it on our own, it was funnier and everything. Or you can't. I think the Big Deal album, it kind of got contrived, and because too many people get involved, and then it's like, sometimes less is more.
Yeah, I agree with that.
The Dirty Weapons video is awesome because it was well done by the Hollywood dude. I think it was Wayne Isham and someone like that. Someone I forget. It could have been James Cagney for all I know. But they're definitely a bonus. Like, definitely. Now I guess you could do a video, but like, does it matter for geezers like us to do videos and put them on YouTube or whatever? It's just going to cost you money, really.
Yeah, for sure.
Come to the show. Come to the show and buy a shirt.
Exactly. Or a CD. We talked a little bit about the Headbangers Ball, and I believe that you might have even hosted with Rob Halford from Priest, right?
Right.
Yes. Yeah. How was that experience for you? Were you a Priest fan at the time? Not a Priest fan? Like, talk to the listeners a little bit about the experience.
Priest fan? You kidding us?
Yeah.
Oh my God, we were huge Priest fans. It was awesome, and he was so nice and down to earth, and so it's nice because sometimes you meet people that you think, oh man, I want to meet you, and then you're a jackass.
Yeah, it's a buzzkill.
Rob was super cool. He came to our show, and couldn't have been a nicer guy. And we loved Judas Priest. Like, who the hell, who doesn't love Priest from our era?
Right, of course.
It's fabulous.
Are you? Is there still any contact with Rob at all from the days, or not really? Not so much, huh?
No. I've gone and seen his shows, and I've seen him recently, and I think he's still fucking amazing. And Richie Faulkner is like one of the best, I think, young gunslingers.
Guitars, yeah.
He's an amazing showman. Like, the guy is captivating to watch. Right? He's somebody I like.
Yeah. Well, I think around 88, you guys signed the big contract with Epic.
Big deal.
The Big Deal. How do you feel like that signing with Epic changed the path for the band, or did it really change the path for the band?
Well, this gave us more money.
Okay.
And creatively, I guess we got to do what we wanted to do a little more. Big Deal was produced by Simon Hanhart. I think that I can't remember if it took 2 or 3 months to do, but it was a different step. And by that album, that was our third album. So I still think we weren't in total control. We were in control of the writing the songs and everything, but not the production, really.
Okay.
Simon did a great job. I think that album sounds amazing, and he is just the nicest guy. I love to work with him again. We still talk to him from time to time, but I don't know. I could overanalyze it. Everybody will have their own opinion of every record. I think there's some great songs on that, and it just. But we're still learning. You know what I mean? We're only 26, 27. I think we're still learning. But that one did great for us too. We ended up, with Maiden and going to Europe with them, and there's some great tunes on that. We still play a bunch of stuff off that record, and but yes, it was the Big Deal. So it was oh, here we go. It's the Black Rock in New York. It's the 52nd Street, 50,000. I don't know. The Black Rock's made of granite, CBS building, and
yes,
we were on Epic, so it was like that was really cool. Like, because like I said, I'm a rock fan, so it was like,
of course.
Cheap Trick, one of my all-time favorite bands. Cheap Trick was on the album, on the label, and Michael Jackson at the time, lots of famous people, but you go to these places, they could basically be selling toilet paper.
Mm-hmm.
Really, like nobody can make a decision, and everybody's scared they're going to lose their jobs if they make a wrong choice. There's a few people that you do believe and are truly in it for the right thing, and that I remember and everything. But it's an eye opener. I'm a hillbilly from Richmond Hill, and here we are with this $10 million record deal, and we're in New York City mixing deal, and oh boy, it's like this is the best street meatloaf I've ever had.
Russ was a fish out of water, wasn't he?
But it's I'm a human observationist. Like, if you know any of the songs that we write that we have, and you read the lyrics, you can see we don't write about chicks and drugs and rock and roll. It's all in the back. It's all in our brain when that's happening. But it's a human observation of everything, and it was just. I just love the minutia. I just love to see how this works and what it's really about and everything. And it's a freaking eye opener.
Yeah, the machine.
Yeah, it's an eye opener. But like I said, it's corporate rock, so they could be selling toilet paper, and
of course.
And it was changing at that time. Right at that time was when Sony bought CBS, and there's a lot of changes going on. You really need people that are going to back your career.
Of course.
Put their ass on the line. And, I get it. Like, you don't want to lose your fucking job because you made a mistake.
Of course.
But everybody makes mistakes, right? Like on that album, Big Deal. I thought Tell Me Please should have been the single, but, who the hell am I?
Well, Simon produced, I think, for some pretty big name artists, right? I think he had Marillion and who else? Maybe
tons of stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think he had Saxon too, and I had Nibs Carter, the bass player for Saxon, on my show not too long ago. And Nibs is a wonderful guy, and it's funny because we talked about recording now. The last record, he said that they recorded the Carpe Diem record. It was all just files sent back and forth, because 5 people are in 5 different places, all over the world, and nobody went to a studio because of the pandemic and all of that. So it's different times for sure.
Yeah, I like being in the room with people. We actually did a tour of Texas with Saxon.
Okay.
But I don't know where the question went, but we love Simon, and he did a great job. He remastered a bunch of Elvis Presley, which I'm like the biggest Elvis fan that ever lived.
Okay.
So Simon is the king.
Wow.
Oh, Elvis is the king, but Simon helped the king.
Right. Well, from the artist, from your chair, like from the artist perspective, how do you feel the production changed? Or the producing change, for better or worse, from, say, the work you did with Maze Records to going to Epic? What could you just see? What was it, light years ahead? Was there a big difference in the production?
You had all the money in the world to spend,
right.
You know what I mean? So my mindset was like, okay, well, we'll spend as much money as possible to make it right. To do it right. I wasn't thinking about, I better save some money here. It's not like they come to your house with $500,000. Here you go, do what you want. Here, I'll get it. Here's my 4-track.
Right.
Like dirty. I think Big Deal cost about $150,000 or something all in with the video. But Weapons was like $500,000, and we spent 6 months on it with Andy Johns in LA, you know what I mean? But we did it right.
Yes, of course.
Production's right. We wanted this, we've come into our own at this point.
Yeah.
You can tell by that record, we were there. That was it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And having Andy as a producer, it's not as much of a thing of him telling you what to do. It's him giving you the confidence to be able to deliver what you felt, when we had the ability, and he, it was an education money can't buy, but but you sure do pay for.
Yes.
And he was one of the greatest guys ever. Him and I hit it off, and famously beyond the music business gag and everything. And Andy is this, like, to me, I don't know a lot. Look up Andy Johns.
Okay.
And see who he is, see who his brother is, and everything. But Andy did a lot of Zeppelin and Stone,
Okay.
all the classic stuff that we love and grew
Of
up.
course.
A lot of Stewart,
Yes.
stuff like that. But Andy's unfortunately been gone for 10 years now too. But he really helped us, gave us a lot of confidence. I think it wasn't a lot of, he wasn't forcing us to do anything. He was teaching. He was teaching us. You know what I mean? So we learned a lot of stuff. We did 2 albums with him.
Yeah. Well, you had mentioned earlier that you guys had gone out with Maiden. Were there other bands that you toured with to support the Big Deal record, or was it just Maiden?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean just Maiden, like it's just Maiden. Iron Maiden. Yeah, but I didn't know. Yeah.
We only played Wembley with Maiden.
Yeah.
There's probably a bunch of, I think we went Macaulay Schenker. We were out with them. Yeah, it's a long time ago. I forget.
Yeah.
We did tons of shows on our own and stuff, but Maiden was probably the big one off of that.
Okay. Well,
and they're great people and still friends. They're just one of the best bands and one of the nicest bunch of guys. Steve is like one of the greatest cats ever.
Of course. Well, I think in '91, you guys. What's that, Russ? Sorry.
Good catering.
Oh yeah, for sure. In '91, you guys were nominated for the second Juno Award as Best Hard Rock Group, but you wound up losing to the Pride of Canada, right? And I was going to say, I guess if you have to lose to somebody, Rush would be a good one to lose to.
Well, I'm sure they needed it more than we did.
Right.
That was actually the first year they put the heavy metal category, I think, in. And,
okay.
And everybody was like, "Yeah, man, you're a shoo-in," and those fuckers from Rush. Well,
that little band.
Yeah, my best friend is actually Getty's Tech, and but that's another story. But awards, what in the hell are they? Like, we're not all the same. It's great to be accepted and everything. We've never really been the accepting kind of people.
Okay.
We're kind of like underdogs, but I always thought that stuff was kind of funny because we don't write the same song. It's not like, hey, who did the best version of this? But you got to understand the politics of it. They're putting this category in for the first time. So of course they're going to get Rush is like fucking Rush. Like,
Yeah. Of course.
You don't like Rush, you go to jail here.
It's like not like in hockey, right? You got to like both of those.
In the end, you're done. So, but, Rush, what can you say? Like, what a career,
yes. Amazing. Well, and I think if you ask 10 people, you'll get 10 different answers about the accolades, right? I think some people like them. Some people need to feel like they're justifying something by receiving them. But I was going to ask you too. I think I kind of got your answer, but what would a Juno Award have meant to you had you guys won the Juno Award? Like, I guess it would have been cool for a while, and then it's like, on to the next thing, kind of, right? Or not so. I mean, because if you think about it, because a lot of people in America don't know maybe what a Juno Award is, but that's the equivalent. What a Grammy Award is, right? That's the equivalent in Canada. So,
well, we've been nominated a couple of times and everything, and I guess it would have been a great thing and all that. But I really don't put a lot of weight into any of that stuff. It's just not my gag. But I guess it would have been cool. But at least we were nominated. At least we were like recognized.
Of course.
I have friends that have Junos and they use them as like doorstops.
Boat anchors.
Maybe one day we'll get those guys, they were almost good. Here's a left over from somebody's basement.
Exactly. Well,
I guess it helps some people. Like the music business patting itself on the back. Look how great we did. We never wrote any of these songs. Here's an award.
Yeah, self-validation. Yeah,
it makes the world go round, I guess.
Of course. Well, and if we fast forwarded to 92, you guys dropped an album called Method to the Madness. And this record had some great songs on it. One of them, I guess, was the power ballad Drifting Back. Mm-hmm. And, this is also, was a song when the power ballads were really a big thing, late 80s, early 90s kind of thing. But what inspired Drifting Back, the lyrics behind the song?
I have no idea, and I talk about this in the show sometimes because I love playing that song, and a lot of people like it. And I wrote that song in 1984. So if you listen to those lyrics, it sounds like some old dude or something. Now like every night when you sing the lyrics, when I sing my own lyrics, it means a different thing. It's and it's up for interpretation to everybody. Absolutely. But, being the length we've been around and everything, and those lyrics, they mean something completely relevant to, what we do now. And a lot of people like that song.
Yeah. For the listeners that, let's say they're tuning into the show and they're not familiar with your stuff, right? Are you the main songwriter in the group? Do you share those responsibilities? Talk about the songwriting that goes on in the band and how that's kind of, divided out. Or is it divided out?
Depends. It depends what lineup. Like right now, Jerry, Cod, and I, that's one person. We write, the songs and the structure of it, and Daryl helps with the arrangements, and if he's such an important part of the Dwarf sound. Like if you don't have him playing the song, it's not a Dwarf song. Like
exactly.
It's the element of all of us together that makes that.
Makes sense.
It is, you know what I mean? It's not like, I'm the one writing these songs.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody came up with a great idea. That's great. But I've always been involved in it with every guitar player we've had. But Jerry and I have a good connection with that.
Yeah. Do you?
Daryl knows how to bring it together.
Okay.
There's something about the way he plays. It makes it into a Dwarf song.
Okay. Do you remember wanting to be, or were you a songwriter at an early age, or did that come later on for you?
I probably started around 16 or something.
Okay. I mean?
Crappy songs or something.
Yeah,
or something.
Of course.
Not that they're not all crappy now. But, no, yeah. You always want to write your own songs and stuff. We've been writing a lot. We've got a lot of stuff right now. It's just a point of getting in there, and where the studio that we're working at right now is being rebuilt into this retro back to analog world. It's really going to be really cool. But we have been recording there last year, so we do have new material, and we are going to release some new material. We're not sure if we're going to do a full album right off the bat, but we will be releasing some singles, and we will. Maybe on Saturday night we'll be playing one of the new ones, because we have been playing one new one in the set in the last year.
Nice.
We'll see if give us enough time.
Yeah. Well, who coming up, in your formidable music years, say junior high school up through high school, who was inspiring you? Who were you into who did you love?
That fucking Rush band.
Those guys.
Rush, Zeppelin, Cooper, definitely a huge Cooper fan. Aerosmith. the standard stuff for people my age. But Cooper was a massive influence on me. Rick Derringer,
Mm.
in the late 70s, obviously loved Van Halen,
Of course.
but Foghat, Cheap Trick, one of my all-time favorite bands, Chicago. God, the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
Sparks, I'm a huge Sparks fan.
Okay.
They never got me in the documentary, those fucking bastards. But lots and lots of stuff. Like loved Kiss.
Yeah. Who do you feel like inspires you these days? Are you much inspired by new stuff? Anything out striking your fancy these days?
For young bands, I love the Rival Sons, and I've loved those guys for a couple of years. Avenged Sevenfold, I think they're fucking amazing band.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I haven't been listening to a lot of new stuff lately. I just I've been writing a lot of stuff myself, so I'm not listening a lot.
Okay.
But I'm really on a huge Beatles kick right now.
Are you? I've always respected the Beatles, but it was never a band that I ran out and bought the records for whatever reason. And I felt kind of the same about the Stones. However, in my now years, I've really grown a liking and really enjoy the Stones, whereas I didn't give a rat's ass about them 30 years ago. Right. So maybe the palette changes a little over time. Right.
I think it does. Stones for sure. They definitely are the greatest rock band.
Yeah.
Never lived it. But all the same stuff from the 70s, you know what I mean? And Badfinger and Thin Lizzy is one of my all-time favorites.
Sure.
God, I'll be up in the night thinking, oh, I forgot to say.
You left somebody out, right?
I grew up, my dad was a big band guy, so I grew up with a lot of Frank Sinatra. I love Tony Bennett.
Okay.
Still love that stuff, Glenn Miller.
Of course.
And Elvis Presley is like probably my all-time favorite, and I love the Beach Boys. Mm-hmm. April Wine.
Oh yeah.
Huge influence as a kid. Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah. I was a big April Wine fan too. Well, one of the past performances for you guys was on this Monsters of Rock cruise. And, back in the 70s and 80s, you'll remember this, I think. You remember how forbidden like video and photography was at concerts back in the day. Like I can remember buying a ticket to a show, whether it was Van Halen or whoever, and on every ticket it said no recording devices or no cameras, no blah blah blah, right? And then we fast forward, well, I guess back then, in the 70s and 80s, it seems like the bands were untouchable, they were unapproachable. It was kind of an us and them thing. And now we fast forward 40 years later, and all of a sudden these artists are getting on the same damn boat together and making themselves available to every person on the boat for the most part.
Well,
what's your thoughts around that? Like, you've seen it change from, what I'm talking about, to what it is now. And which of those do you favor? Like, which is your preference?
I can remember that, like around 2008, I think the video phone thing started happening. And I can remember being at a show because, sometimes I'll stop and let them take a picture of me. And I thought, that's taking a hell of a long time for a fucking picture. But the thing with the Monsters of Rock cruise and stuff, which is a fabulous event, because you have all these bands and all these people are there for the right reasons, and they do such a great job. Like the production of the thing is just like top drawer. All the people you work with are amazing, and you're there for that reason, to meet the fans. Like, don't go on the Monsters of Rock cruise as a band and not expect to encounter
people,
fans, because that's the whole point of the situation, right?
Yes, I agree.
And everyone's there, and they're all. It's not like there's no negative vibe. It's just like a
That's awesome.
totally peace, love, and road hockey, and nobody's. I have never seen any aggression or any.
Yeah.
You know, so some bands hide and stuff, which I guess that's your prerogative, but you really, should be grateful, and we love it. Like,
well, and I think that's the way it should have been 40 years ago, and I made kind of the tongue-in-cheek comment several times on my show that, remembering back to the days of the mid 70s, the late 70s, where you hear songs like, I mean, we said it earlier, Nick Gilder, right? I thought that was a girl that sang that song, right? Because I never saw a picture of Nick Gilder, right? Because it wasn't in our face. There's not the prominence of the internet and where everything is right at your fingertips. So there was like this mystery back then of who are these people? What do they even look like, right?
I have to buy Circus Magazine or something.
Exactly.
Yeah, I kind of like that. I kind of like.
There's a mystique. Yeah.
Yeah, there is. Like the veil has been lifted, definitely. And then God help you if you said the wrong thing.
Of course.
Everyone's so scared and everything. I don't care at this point. Like, cancel me. I'm canceled.
Yeah.
Well, cancel my Visa bill.
Yes.
But you're right. Yeah, it was definitely. It was like untouchable.
Yeah.
Just go in and go out and see them up there and think that they were like, wow, they are the golden gods. But no, we're actually just humans.
Yeah, exactly.
But we lived through that, and that was cool. I like that.
Well, times change, people change, and the Killer Dwarfs have sold in excess of 2 million records over the years, and not many bands can say that they were ever that successful. So congrats to you and the boys for the success that you have had over the years. What's coming up that you guys can share? You mentioned a little bit earlier about maybe some new material. Is there anything that you can elaborate on, or we just leave it at there's some new material coming out? Is there a timeline or anything like that?
We're not under any schedule, anything, but we're just waiting for this room to get finished and continue on. Like we have stuff that we are working on that we've already tracked and everything, but the whole studio is being redone. So hopefully in midsummer, hopefully by the fall, we'll have something out. I want to get something out. I want people to hear some new music and see if they like it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, tell me.
Plan on playing shows, and as long as we can, as long as everybody's healthy and getting out and seeing everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Talk to the listeners a little bit about, are there solo efforts for you as well outside of Killer Dwarfs? Can you speak to that?
I have a band called the Russ Dwarf Band. Oh my God, what a wacky original name. Yeah, and I have tunes too that will be coming out. I have a whole album of stuff that's probably going to come out. And that's about it. I've got a ton of songs, and I got a great little band that I work with, which is fun. And so between that and the Dwarfs, there's lots of music coming from us. Daryl's got books coming out, and there's probably on a patio right now somewhere.
Who's playing with you in the solo band? Who are the musicians in your band?
Pat Carano is on the drums, a great drummer from up here in Oshawa, Ontario. Or I think, where does he live now? Campbellford or something. Pat Carano, Bobby Lee Frenette on guitar, who's an excellent guitar player, and Rob Zacks, who you've had encounters with, I think, this week.
I have.
He's the Dwarf manager, and he's also the bass player in my solo band. And he sings like a bird.
Nice. Well, a shout out to Rob for helping get this set up for sure. Will he be up in Detroit?
You told me to say it's Rob Zed.
Rob Zed.
Rob Z.
Yeah.
I've blown that already. Yeah, he'll be this weekend because he manages the band, and sometimes he comes out and road manages. So he's going to be with us all weekend.
Awesome. Well, I hope that I'm able to
We'll meet him on Saturday.
say hello to you guys when I'm up there this weekend. Where can the listeners find you and the projects on social media? I know you said that you're not the social media guy, but if somebody wants to look up tour dates or merch or whatever the case may be, where would they find you guys?
Probably the Facebook gag. I think I know there's a Killer Dwarf. Pardon me, Killer Dwarfs and Russ Dwarf, and I think there's stuff on Twitter. Daryl, if you go to Daryl Dwarf on Facebook and Twitter and everything, Daryl usually posts. He's the social media guy from outer space, and I think we're on all the platforms like. You were saying Spotify. I've never even used Spotify. I didn't even know what the hell it is. My sister-in-law tells me about it. I have Apple Tunes or iTunes or whatever the fuck it is.
It's all the same shit, right? Just a different name. Yeah. It's digital music at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, so you can find Dwarfs out on all that stuff, and definitely, I'm pretty sure it's on the face plant there.
Yeah, the face plant. Well, I think there's a domain called killerdwarfsband.com too. I think you guys can be found on that. Yeah. So you don't even have to pay me for knowing your information for you there, Russ. See, I'm a good guy like that. You can spread the word. Real quick before we part, is there something about you that maybe your fans don't know that they might find interesting about you?
I do nothing best.
Or you could plead the fifth too.
I could plead the fifth. Let's don't talk about politics or legal matters.
No. That'll open up a whole new can of worms, right? And I'm trying to. I know we're kind of a little longer than an hour, but we could go until tomorrow sometime, and I know you have better things to do.
We can lose half my audience. I don't know. I love to read and just hang around. I'm a homebody. I like to be at home. And like I said, Canada is 2 months, two seasons, construction and winter. So apparently it's a construction season now. So you'll catch me sitting outside reading a book.
There you go.
Right. And I smoke too much. And that's the last vice I have. I don't drink and party anymore. I'm just an old dud.
Yeah. Do you feel like your voice, and you just made me think of one question, and I've asked vocalists this, and I've asked some pretty prominent vocalists this, and I wanted to hear what you had to say about it. But do you feel like your voice is as powerful now as it was 40 years ago? Talk to me about the voice and the range. Have you lost range? Have you not lost range? Talk about that.
I must have lost some range. I lost a lot of hearing.
That's a given.
Like Daryl thinks I still sound great, so I'll go with his analogy of it. I usually find my voice gets a little stronger the more shows we do in a row and everything. So
that makes sense.
A different thing. It's a muscle, right? Like I've been, we haven't done a gig since December, so like I sing at home. And like I don't sing dwarf things, obviously, and I sing songs that I'm writing, but I don't sing them out like I'm going to be performing. So when I rehearse at home, I just put on like Old Cheap Trick or Old April Wine or Rush or something, and I sing that. So I don't know. Tomorrow night will be the tale to see if I'm any good. I might suck.
Are there refunds on the show in St. Charles? I just want to know that. If you suck, can I get my money back?
No sucking refunds.
No sucking refunds.
No. But I don't know. I still seem to have a voice, so I'll cross my fingers. And, I'm lucky.
Yeah, for sure you are, because I know several people that was their tool. And they don't have that tool anymore. And it's devastating when that you rely on, the voice to be your source of income, and then the voice gives out, and what do you turn to, right? And it's very disheartening. It's sad, but luckily you still have it. Luckily you have your health and you're able to get out on the road and do what you guys do well. It was great to track you down through Rob. I wish you guys continued success with the endeavors you have in the works. And I look forward to seeing you hopefully Saturday in Chicago, and look forward to the new stuff coming out. So for the listeners, you guys go out and follow Russ on social media, and then be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out the band at killerdwarfsband.com. I ask the listeners to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast on Facebook at Backstage Pass Radio Podcast, on Instagram at Backstage Pass Radio, on Twitter at Backstage Pass PC, and on the website at BackstagePassRadio.com. You guys make sure to take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll be right back here on the next episode of Backstage Pass Radio.
Thanks so much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed today's episode of Backstage Pass Radio. Make sure to follow Randy on Facebook and Instagram at Randy Halsey Music, and on Twitter at @RHalseyMusic. Also, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on alerts for upcoming podcasts. If you enjoyed the podcast, make sure to share the link with a friend and tell them Backstage Pass Radio is the best show on the web for everything music. We'll see you next time right here on Backstage Pass Radio.